Chris and Joe Show, KTAR News, on air, online, on the KTAR News app. And as a follow-up to the special that I did earlier with Kaylee O'Kelly from ABC 15, I asked Kaylee, she was still hanging out here, which is nice of her. Most people skedaddle as quick as they can. And I said, hey, do you want to come back? Do one more with us, and Joe was kind enough to say I'll not work for a segment, which was nice. So Kaylee, thank you for stepping back into his chair. Appreciate it.
Thrilled to be here.
With us right now is Mike Noble from Noble Predictive Insights. You've heard Mike on the station numerous times before talking about Prop 139. A majority of Arizonans, almost every demographic in every category, almost support the ballot measure. At least that's what we're seeing in some of the polling. And I'm curious about what your polls are showing. I do know that there are a few demographics, whether it's a Republican Party or those over a certain age, that seem to be hedging against Prop 139. Mike, what are you seeing right now?
Well, great for having me. And basically what we're seeing in the polling is that, currently overall, it's about 6 in 10 Arizona voters currently support the measure, and opposition is probably around, the low 30s. And basically it's in a pretty good position overall in that when you look at the demographics, pretty much every group is on board except for the groups most driving the support. Surprise, surprise, any female that's basically age 45 or less, put any female demographic there. They're the most supportive and also interested in this topic, like it directly impacts them. And then you also look at the folks that are less engaged is I'd say Republicans that are 65 and older are probably the biggest curmudgeons on this issue. One is generational differences. They just had different values when they came up. Also, that's less impacted on their end. But as you get younger in age, so basically as you get older, the more you might be against it. But as you get younger, they become more pro-choice as you go down the ladder.
You mentioned pro-choice. I think it's really important to bring this up. I'm wondering if voters understand that this isn't an issue of being pro-choice or pro-life. This is about abortion access. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So when you look at this measure, so you have one is their fundamental views on abortion. And so whether you're pro-choice, pro-life, that's like a political position. But this is actually access. So basically Arizona basically had access to abortion until Roe v. Wade was overturned at the Supreme Court, which I don't think anybody of us had this on our bingo card. And once that happened, it got kicked down to the states. Say, hey, you all figure it out. Well, the next step was like, okay, states, what's now the law of the land? Is it this effort, this law that was passed through the legislature, or is it this, territorial, or this law that was on the books since before Arizona was even entered statehood?
Late 1800s, yeah.
Yeah, so over 100 years ago? I wasn't around then. And so when you look at that, it's just basically like, where was it? And it was basically zero tolerance, so no exceptions for rape and incest. And that's really what is on the ballot. Like, do we want to go back to where it was prior to this Roe v. Wade thing, or kind of keep with what we have, which currently it doesn't have exceptions for rape and incest?
Mike Noble from Noble Predictive Insights, our guest right now as we continue our conversation about Prop 139, and Kaylee O'Kelly from ABC 15 morning anchor is joining us for the segment. Mike, if I can follow up, you made mention of the territorial law, the 1865 law, which was on the books, and then we had the law overturned, and now there was a bit of confusion during that interim period between 2022 and I guess January of this year. Did you see any shifting in sentiment during that time when things were so muddy?
You did and you didn't. So sentiment shifted when it comes to when we're keeping the pulse on the electorate here in the state is that you saw like the awareness of the issue increased. So it went from abortion is around like, okay, this is important, mainly among female demographic groups. But it was interesting what people's overall stances on abortion, that really didn't shift. It's almost like people don't wake up one day and go, oh, I'm pro-choice or, oh, I'm pro-life when it comes to this issue. Especially when you look at Gallup, they track issues over decades of time. You'll see like economy or immigration and all these other national security, all these issues will go up and down over time. You look at the abortion or topic, it basically is like a straight line. It's more like generational differences. So you didn't see a shift of in there. It's just really of like awareness and issue priority is what you saw.
Well, to me, what's become really interesting is that confusion as to whether or not this is for pro-life, right, or pro-choice. But when you talk about generations, are you seeing a staggering number of a certain demographic that actually has an opinion about it now, as opposed to maybe 4 years ago? Even though I know this wasn't on the ballot.
18 to 34-year-olds.
Okay.
Yeah. Younger. Yeah, and it's funny, interesting. One of the biggest groups that move is 18 to 34-year-old Republicans. Because, Republicans on their platform wasn't until just recently the party platform changed, but they were like, hey, we will protect the sanctity of life. I mean, that was in the party platform, et cetera. And now, when I saw, I was like, oh, like 30% or 40% of Republican females in that age range were, supportive of the issue. I'm like, because, again, ideologically, et cetera, but again, you're seeing this big change. We're witnessing the biggest, change between the Republican Democratic group since the civil rights movement. The shift between the two parties right now.
So the bigger predictor then, and I'm asking, is the generation, not necessarily party affiliation.
Oh yeah, no. Honestly, the age is probably one of the of all the demographics. You see the big difference. Like the younger you get, the more you think a person should have the right to choose that, compared to the older you get, especially the 65 older are the folks that, government should be, putting restrictions or, be, playing on this issue.
Does that change as people age, or is that something that's likely to follow? So millennials and Gen Z, that sentiment is likely to maintain, or do their opinions change as they get older?
No. It's a little bit. It's a little more generational, but yeah, I'd say the middle. Millennials, yes. I think millennials have shifted comparatively, but once you get into the boomer age, like their opinions are their opinions.
But when you say they've shifted, can you be clearer about that? Shifted where?
Oh, it shifted. So they shifted from being more pro-choice, basically, or women's access to abortion, basically.
I'm fascinated by all of this. I always feel like the numbers tell the story, and you, better than any of us, know how to read that book.
Well, that's why you usually try to just fill in the words, say shift, and you're right. I hate to go like, 32%, and so then you start.
I'm always wondering, is this something that a 35-year-old female generally feels, or is that something that is unique to a 35-year-old female in 2024?
Again, more so now because, again, remember, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land for 4 decades or so?
Right.
So, I mean, remember, this wasn't talked about. Yes, you had the issue, but remember, it was federal law.
Right.
You couldn't really do much about it, right? And then this surprise ruling, we're going to repeal that. It's going to go down to the states. So all of you 50 states, you figure it out.
And so that's new to everybody that's 35
That's why
now.
everybody freaked out, because they're like, A, didn't have this on our bingo card. B, it was that, again, that's where you're seeing these battles. So each state's doing different, like how California is going to do it, very different from Texas.
Sure.
And on down. And so, but where people have moved, it's just, I have seen, especially in the last decade, in Arizona, which has been known traditionally as a very socially conservative state, we have seen that Arizonans have moved. It's very similar to like recreational use of marijuana. Mm-hmm. Kind of like people were really against that, like, I don't know, 6 years ago, or 10 years ago, you couldn't get that passed for the life of you. And then it landed up passing with 60% of the vote last time.
Yeah.
And that's where I see this issue is kind of around that same realm. But, Arizonans, I think, are not as socially conservative as they used to be.
What will be interesting is this will be enshrined, right, in our state constitution. Correct. And that means it's going to be extremely difficult to have it changed.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't think
voters need to understand that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
Correct. I mean, and it'd be really tough to. I mean, frankly, I think all the momentum is on the side of of this initiative. Frankly, to support, one, they have the money advantage. Two, I think their messaging is incredibly dialed in. I think it's better odds than not. But the thing is, the no side, there's no money out there. There's really not really anybody going out there really talking and fight, because if you try to go out there and fight, try to find the no side to go talk with them, to go argue their point on the issue. I mean, I haven't really seen many, if at all, out there on the issue. So again, I just think it was always going to happen. It was just a matter of when. Yeah. But this is where Arizona voters will have the chance to vote it up or vote it down.
Mike Noble, Noble Predictive Insights. Pleasure having you in here, Mike. I appreciate that and look forward to the next time. Thanks for kind of telling us that story, how you see it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.